I took a sword for Shu Jian, rendering me infertile for life. He stayed by my bedside for 3 days and 3 nights, crying until I awoke, promising to marry me. But less than a year after our marriage, he fell in love with a lively and clever tofu seller. When she was 3 months pregnant, he allowed her to feed me poisoned food. He mocked me, calling me nothing more than a barren hen. As the poison took effect, Shu Jian held my hand at my bedside and sighed. "Liuang, don't blame me. If you hadn't died, my child would have been born of a concubine. For the past year, I've given you the respect due to a mistress, ensuring you had enough to eat and drink. That is already repaying the kindness of your sword. Your death will fulfill the name of my beloved wife. You've died a worthy death." Hate welled up within me. I pulled out a hairpin and plunged it into his lower body. He made me infertile. I'll make him childless. But after he strangled me to death when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I saved him. But this time, I didn't go back. The cramping pain from my abdomen was like 10,000 steel needles churning inside my innards. It was the agonizing pain of the Headinghong poison taking effect. I curled up in the straw pile of the moldy woodshed, listening to the music of strings and flutes coming from the main house not far away. That was Shu Jian celebrating his kept mistress Wang Linglong conceiving another child, and also celebrating that I, this woman who was his principal wife in name but a decoration in reality, was finally about to die. "Liuang, don't blame me. Years ago, you damaged your womb to save me, leaving you barren for life. If I let you keep the position of the mistress of the house, how would my Shu family line continue?" Shu Jian's hypocritical voice seemed to still echo in my ears, carrying a tone of condescending charity. "For this past year, I've given you the honor of the mistress, and haven't stinted on your food or drink. That was already repayment for the kindness of taking that sword for me back then. Now, using your death to fulfill the title of my beloved wife, you can consider yours a death well died. I hate that I was so blind back then, that I actually took that sword slash during the startled horse incident for such a heartless bastard. I hate that my status as the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter actually became a stepping stone for his career, only for me to end up dying such a miserable death. I could no longer suppress the metallic sweetness in my throat. I violently spurted out a mouthful of black blood, and my consciousness sank into boundless darkness and agonizing pain. "Miss, watch out!" A shrill scream exploded like a thunderclap, forcibly dragging me back from the abyss of hell. The sensation of suffocation vanished, replaced by the noisy clamor of voices and the overwhelming earthy scent of street life. I snapped my eyes open, gasping for air, cold sweat soaking my back. Before me wasn't that dark, cramped woodshed, but the blindingly sunny, bustling market of the capital. I am not dead. No, not only am I not dead, but this scene, it is so familiar. 3 jang ahead, a fiery date, red horse with bloodshot eyes and foaming at the mouth, clearly having gone mad, was raising its bowl-sized iron hooves, neighing as it charged wildly in our direction. And beside me, that man in a moon, white brocade robe, looking panic-stricken and trying to hide behind me, was none other than Shu Jian. In my previous life, it was this very moment. This was a crazy horse the 9th prince had deliberately arranged to test Shu Jian. In my past life, seeing Shu Jian frozen on the spot, I threw myself over without thinking, using my frail body to block that fatal collision for him. The horse-slave's sword pierced my lower abdomen, destroying my womb and ruining my life, and Shu Jian, completely unharmed. "Liuang, quick, save me!" Shu Jian screamed in terror. The folding fan that he valued more than his life had long been thrown to the ground. Instinctively, he reached out, trying to violently yank me in front of him to be his meat shield. Just like in the past life. Want me to die again, in your dreams. In that instant, the blood in my entire body seemed to freeze, only to then boil with the hellfire of revenge. Acting almost on physical instinct, I clamped onto the wrist of my maidservant, Tushi, who was scared witless beside me, and summoned every ounce of strength to roll towards the clutter-filled alley on the right. "Get out of the way," I shouted sharply, using the momentum of my fall not only to get myself out of the trampling range of the horse's hooves, but also to stomp viciously on the hand Shu Jian had reached out. That stomp cut off any chance he had of grabbing me. Shu Jian grabbed at empty air, stumbled, and was left completely exposed before the rampaging horse. Boom! Accompanied by the teeth, grating sound of shattering bones, a heavy iron hoof stomped ruthlessly onto Shu Jian's right knee, followed immediately by a second stomp that ground heavily over the base of his thigh. That was the sound of bones being crushed into powder. Fresh blood instantly dyed the flagstone road red. Shu Jian couldn't even utter a cry for help. His eyeballs bulged out, and under that massive force of impact, he was kicked flying like a broken rag doll, smashing heavily into a wonton stall where scalding soup splashed all over his body. "Someone's been killed. A runaway horse has trampled someone to death. Someone help. Quick. That's Heir Shu." The surrounding commoners screamed as they scattered and fled, while others plucked up the courage to gather around. I lay in the pile of junk at the corner of the alley, Kyushi trembling as she shielded me. Miss, are you all right? Did you get hurt?" I lifted my head, staring fixedly through my messy hair at Shu Jian, who was twitching in a pool of blood in the distance. He wasn't dead yet, but his right leg was twisted in a weird reverse angle below the knee. Ghastly white bone had pierced through his expensive brocade robe and was sticking out, a bloody mess. What made me even happier was that the hoof seemed to have kicked quite high, landing right between his legs. In my past life, he despised me for being unable to bear children. For the sake of that mistress, he not only cut off my bloodline, but also took my life. In this life, I will watch him turn to a true cripple. I am fine. I slowly stood up, patted the dust off my skirt, suppressed the wild joy surging in my eyes, and put on an expression of lingering fear mixed with utter grief. "Quick, Kyushi! Go call a doctor, the heir." The heir actually faced the stampeding horse alone to protect me. I stumbled out of the alley and threw myself onto the unconscious Shu Jian. No one saw that, under the cover of my wide sleeves, my fingers swiftly pressed a few major acupoints at the wound on his broken leg. This was the pulse, severing hand, I secretly learned from an old wandering doctor when I was imprisoned in my past life, having become a doctor of sorts after a long illness. This press won't just stop the bleeding to keep him alive. It'll also cut off any chance of the meridians in that leg ever reconnecting. Even if the Daluo Golden Immortal were here for the rest of his life, he'll be nothing but a cripple sitting in a wheelchair, pissing and shitting himself. "Jaeyeon, why are you so stupid?" I cried my heart out, huge tears smashing onto his blood-stained face. But inside I was sneering. "Shu Jian, this is just the beginning. Since the gates of hell have opened, how could I not personally send you on your way?" When Shu Jian was carried back to Prince Shu's manor, his entire leg was connected by just a layer of skin and flesh. Imperial doctors came in wave after wave, but eventually they all came out shaking their heads. Princess Shu, also my future mother-in-law in this life, cried until she fainted several times. The entire Shu household was in chaos, yet no one dared to mention calling off the engagement. After all, in everyone's eyes, Heir Shu ended up in this state just to save me, his fiancée. If the Shu family initiates breaking the engagement now, it looks like they disdain me. If my Xia family breaks it, that would be ungrateful. They really calculated this well, wanting me to bring the power of the Grand Tutor's residence, marry a cripple to live like a widow, and even be grateful to him for a lifetime. 3 days later, I took Kyushi along and went to their door, holding the 100-year-old ginseng that had been prepared long ago. As soon as I entered the front hall, I saw Princess Shu sitting in the seat of honor with eyes red and swollen. Prince Shu sat beside her, both looking absolutely terrible. Shu Jian lay on a soft couch, his face pale as paper, his right leg wrapped in thick layers of gauze, giving off a heavy smell of medicine and a stench of rot that couldn't be covered up. Seeing me arrive, a strange light actually burst forth from Shu Jian's lifeless eyes. That was the look he had when he poisoned me to death in the woodshed in my past life. Greedy, sinister, and holding the illusion that he controlled everything. Li Weiying. He spoke with a hoarse voice, trying hard to prop himself up. You finally came to see me. I knew you had a place for me in your heart. A wave of revulsion hit my heart, but my face remained impassive. With slightly reddened eyes, I curtsied. How is the heir's injury? What did the imperial physician say? Princess Shu beat me to it, grabbing my hand and crying. Li Weiying, I am afraid Jian's leg won't get better, but the one he cares about most in his heart is you. He kept calling your name even when he was in a coma. You are a good daughter of the Shi family. Now that Jian has become like this to save you. Your wedding date. I was thinking we should move it up, to bring some good luck to the manor. Bring good luck. This is intending to nail me completely onto the rotting ship. That is the Shu family. If it were the silly me from my past life, I'd probably be a weeping mess by now, crying and shouting that I'd marry no one but you. Unfortunately, the me of today is a demon who just crawled back from hell. I pulled my hand back, wiped away non-existent tears with a handkerchief, and sighed. You are right, Aunt. Jian has such deep affection for me, so naturally I cannot let him down. It is just... I changed my tone, my gaze sweeping over Shu Jian's crippled leg with pointed meaning. It is just that the imperial physician said Jian was injured at the root. I am afraid in the future, heirs will be difficult to come by. Although I, Xia Liuying, am no royalty as the legitimate daughter of the Xia family, I absolutely cannot let the family line end with me. This is also my parents' greatest worry. Shu Jian's expression changed abruptly, his look instantly turning sinister. His injury was in an awkward place. Such matters should have been kept private. But now that I've exposed it in public, it was no different than rubbing salt in his wound. Liuying, do you despise me? Shu Jian gritted his teeth, his voice seeping with a bone, chilling coldness. Don't forget, on whose account I ended up like this. How could I despise the heir? I put on an innocent face. I am merely worried that the XU family will have no successor. However, if the heir already has offspring, then this concern would naturally vanish. Prince Yu frowned. Liuying, what is the meaning of this? Jian has always kept himself clean and is not yet married. Where would an heir come from? I smiled slightly, turned my head toward the door and clapped my hands. Bring her in. 2 rough servant women walked in, holding up a woman in a plain white dress that couldn't hide the slight bulge of her belly. As soon as the woman saw Shu Jian on the soft couch, she broke free from the servants, knelt on the ground with a thud, and wept piteously. Heir, save me! They want to kill my child. It was none other than Wang Linglong, the woman from my past life who pretended to be so weak she couldn't take care of herself in front of Shu Jian, but behind my back fed me poison. At this moment, she didn't yet have the arrogance she would later on. She looked like nothing more than a pitiful little white flower. Shu Jian's pupils constricted violently, obviously not expecting me to find Wang Linglong, and even less expecting me to bring her directly to the front hall. Thursday, what is going on? Princess Shu stood up in shock. I slowly walked to Wang Linglong's side, looking down at the adulterous couple. My clear voice echoed throughout the front hall. Auntie, you may not know, but this Miss Wang lives in Tofu Alley in the south of the city. She is the young master's confidante. She is 3 months pregnant now. Since the heir injured his body to save me, and will likely find it hard to have children in the future. Then, what is in Miss Wang's belly is the Shu family's only heir. I turned around, looking straight at the livid Shu Jian, a mocking sneer curling the corners of my mouth. The heir keeps claiming deep affection and righteousness towards me, risking your life to save me. Yet while we were engaged, you kept a mistress on the side, and even managed to produce a child. Is this what the heir calls deep affection? Exiliuing you? Shu Jian was overcome with sudden rage, and he sprayed out a mouthful of bloody foam. Of course he wouldn't dare admit it. Because this isn't just a moral failing. It is a slap in the face to the Grand Tutor's household. In my past life, he kept Wang Linglong hidden extremely well. It wasn't until I had been married for a year without bearing children that he brought her into the manor under the pretext of taking a concubine. Now that I've revealed this card early, I've completely cut off his way out. Since Miss Wang is pregnant, this is a joyous occasion. I looked coldly at Princess Shant. The Shu family has an heir now, so I won't have to bear the guilt of cutting off your family line. However, my Xia family has been upright for generations. We absolutely will not tolerate such filthy scandals as pregnancy before marriage and keeping a mistress. This marriage is called off as of today. No, Princess Shu screamed. You can't call off the marriage. The seed in that cheap slut's belly might not even be Jian's. Wang Linglong heard this and immediately wailed to high heaven. Madam, please see the truth. The heir is the only man I've ever had. The heir has a red mole on his waist and an old scar on his inner thigh. If I am lying, may lightning strike me dead. Her shout not only confirmed the affair, but also exposed Shu Jian's private affairs completely. Prince Shu trembled with rage and slapped the table. You scoundrel! Why haven't you dragged this disgraceful woman away yet? Hold on. I didn't take a single step back. Instead, I pulled out the annulment letter I'd written long ago from my sleeve and slammed it onto the table with a loud phase-mac fey. This engagement ends today, whether you like it or not. Heir Shu injured his leg saving me, so my Xia family will offer 1,000 taels of gold and 100 mu of fertile land as compensation to repay that kindness. But if the Shu family insists on pestering us, I am afraid a memorial from the censorate impeaching Prince Shu's manor for favoring a concubine over a wife and moral misconduct will be on the emperor's desk by tomorrow. My father is the current Grand Tutor, with Protfegi phased throughout the court and country. Those stubborn bones in the censorate have zero tolerance for this sort of thing. Prince Shu's expression changed again and again before he finally slumped back into his chair in defeat. He knew that the Shu family had to swallow this bitter pill today. Shu Jian stared dead at me, in his eyes aside from malice. There was actually a trace of shock and fear that I couldn't comprehend. As if asking, how did you know about Wang Linglong? How did you suddenly become so ruthless? I met his gaze, leaned over slightly, and said in a voice only he could hear, Shu Jian, you ought to be glad you only broke one leg. If I were you, rather than thinking about how to plot against me, you'd be better off thinking about how to save your remaining leg. Having said that, I didn't spare him another glance. Taking Kyushi with me, I walked out of Prince Shu's manor without looking back. Behind me came Wang Linglong's shrill crying and the sound of teacups shattering. The sunlight falling on me was a bit blinding. I took a deep breath. The air no longer held that nauseating smell of blood and medicine. The curtain had finally risen on this great drama of revenge. In the days following the annulment, I wasn't as despondent as father and mother feared. Instead, I dove headfirst into medical books. I begged father to invite Imperial Physician Sunday, who had retired from the Imperial Academy of Medicine. Ostensibly, it was to cultivate my character. But actually, it was for that fey classic of Poison's Fey. In my previous life when I was imprisoned, I chanced to learn that Imperial Physician Sunday's ancestors were of the Miaozhang poison doctor lineage, holding many long-lost secret recipes. This bout of study lasted 3 months. It wasn't until this day, when I went to pick up medicine at Huichun Hall in the west of the city, that I saw Shu Jian again. Rather than saying I saw him, it is better to say I smelled him. Before I even stepped inside, a stench of urine that even strong musk couldn't mask hit me right in the face. At the counter, Shu Jian sat in that custom-made carved wheelchair, pointing right at the shopkeeper's nose and hurling abuse. A bunch of quacks. How is it possible that my legs can't be saved? Dare to spout any more nonsense, and believe it or not, I'll smash up this dump of yours. He had lost a lot of weight, his cheekbones protruded, and there were dark shadows under his eyes. His face, which could once be called handsome, was now filled with nothing but hostility. Although that white brocade robe looked glamorous, the faint yellow stain seeping through the hem exposed his current plight. He couldn't even take care of his own toileting needs. Behind him, Wang Linglong was dressed in a gaudy pink gown, her head covered in glittering gold dangling hairpins. She was wearing an awkward, apologetic smile for the onlookers watching the drama, occasionally reaching out to tug at Shujian's sleeve, only for him to shake her off in disgust. "Don't touch me, just looking at you annoys me," Shujian roared, startling Wang Linglong into flinching. It seems that this pair of true loves from my past life aren't having such a great time in this one. I curled the corners of my lips and walked in slowly, fanning myself with my round fan. "Oh my, isn't this heir Shu? Why such a big temper?" Hearing my voice, Shujian stiffened all over and abruptly spun his wheelchair around. When he saw it was me, a trace of panic flashed through his eyes. He subconsciously tugged at the hem of his robe, trying to cover the stains on his legs. But that smell was something he just couldn't hide. "Exi Liuing." He called my name through gritted teeth, his gaze complex, containing both resentment and a trace of inexplicable expectation. "What are you here for? To laugh at me?" "Your Highness is joking. I am here to get medicine." I covered my mouth and nose with my round fan. Though I didn't say it explicitly, my disdain was written all over my face. "But as for your Highness, this body of yours seems not quite up to snuff." Shujian's face turned the color of pig liver. The way he looks now is all thanks to me. But he didn't dare say it, nor could he. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, his look changed, and he actually put on a deeply affectionate appearance. "Luing, I know you are still angry. It was my fault back then. I shouldn't have kept the Linglong matter from you. But I've thought it through these past few months. How could those vulgar women compare to you? If you are willing to come back, the position of the heir's consort is still yours." The surrounding crowd let out a burst of boos. A broken-legged, incontinent piece of trash actually wants to crawl back to his ex. Wang Linglong stood to the side, her face ghastly pale, wringing the handkerchief in her hand deathly tight, her eyes full of venom. I felt like I'd heard the biggest joke ever. Unable to hold back my laughter, "Shujian, are you still asleep?" Leaving aside the fact that we've already broken off the engagement, just based on your current appearance, do you think the Shea family would even spare you a glance? I took a step forward, leaned down slightly, my gaze scraping over his face like a blade. Besides, as for how the heir's leg was broken, how this body was ruined, others might not know, but don't you know perfectly well yourself? Shujian's pupils constricted, and his whole body began to tremble violently. He recalled that day under the horse's hooves, that eerie kick of mine, and the split second of agonizing pain before he passed out. "It was you. It was you." He pointed at me, his finger trembling like a fallen leaf in the wind. "It was you who pulled a trick that day." "Mind your words, heir," I interrupted him coldly, my eyes full of mockery. "That day, it was the heir himself who lost his footing. I disregarded my own safety to pull you, only to nearly get hurt because of you." "What? Now you are blaming your savior instead." Oh, right." I seemed to suddenly remember something, pulling a delicate little porcelain bottle from my sleeve and tossing it casually into his arms. "For the sake of our acquaintance, this bottle of clear breeze powder is a gift for the heir. Although it won't cure your legs, at least it can get rid of the smell, after all. In such a public place, it wouldn't be good to stink up the bystanders." The porcelain bottle rolled down between his legs, getting stuck right on that stain. Boom. The surrounding crowd burst into a roar of laughter, and the sounds of them pointing and gossiping felt like countless needles piercing into Shu Jian's ears. So he really peed his pants. Atskek Te, the dignified heir, actually a bed-wetting cripple. Shu Jian's face instantly turned pale as paper, then swelled to a purple red, looking as if he were about to explode. He gripped the armrest deadly tight. Even his fingernails snapped, and glared at me with crimson eyes, a beast-like low growl emitting from his throat. But he couldn't do anything. He couldn't stand up, couldn't hit me, didn't even have the strength to curse. In that instant, the self-esteem he was so proud of was stepped under my foot and ruthlessly crushed. I glanced at him with contempt, turned to the shopkeeper and said, "Fill the prescription according to the formula and send it to the Grand Tutor's manor." After speaking, I walked out without looking back. Behind me came Shu Jian's hysterical roaring and the sound of smashing things. But to me, this was nothing but a pleasant melody. Shu Jian can't handle it already. Don't rush. The real show is yet to come. Shu Jian didn't let it rest there. A few days later, I accidentally met Wang Linglong again at the capital's largest jewelry shop, Linlang Pavilion. This was naturally not a coincidence, but something I had specially arranged. According to reports from my spies, the Shu family had been stripped of many official duties due to Shu Jian's broken leg, and their income had dropped sharply. Moreover, Shu Jian was spending heavily to seek doctors and medicine for his leg, so the household was already spending more than it earned. It just so happened that at this moment, in order to turn the tide, Shu Jian recalled the Liangwei salt certificate case from his past life memories that was about to erupt. He remembered that at this juncture, as long as he could pull some strings to get the salt certificates, he could make a fortune, and even make a connection with the crown prince, leading to a meteoric rise in his career. But he didn't have money, so he set his sights on selling off the estate's assets and embezzling public funds, and this crucial facilitation fee was currently held in Wang Linglong's hands. Linlang Pavilion, second floor, inside a private room. I was casually picking through a few newly arrived pure gold dangling hairpins, when out of the corner of my eye I glimpsed Wang Linglong loitering furtively in front of the counter. She was dressed even more luxuriously than last time, but the clothes looked ill. Fitting no matter how you looked at them, they were obviously altered old styles. Her eyes were shifty as she stared at the priceless phoenix blood jade bangle inside the counter, her eyes full of greed. The jade bangle was blood, red throughout, crystal clear and translucent. It was the Linlang Pavilion's treasure of the shop, with a price tag of 5,000 taels of silver. "Shopkeeper, bring that bangle out for me to see." I pointed at the phoenix blood jade bangle. My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for Wang Linglong to hear. Wang Linglong whipped her head around. Seeing it was me, her expression changed, but then she immediately straightened her back, put on a haughty air, and walked over. "Oh, Miss Xia has her eye on this bracelet too," she said snidely. "What a pity. This bracelet is all about fate. I think it is actually quite destined for me." I gave a light chuckle, not even sparing her a glance. Some things aren't fit for just any random cat or dog to wear. "Shopkeeper, wrap it up." "Hold on." Wang Linglong got anxious and slammed her hand on the counter. "I want to buy it too." The shopkeeper looked troubled. "This, concubine Wang, there is only one bracelet, and Miss Shi asked for it first. I'll pay double," Wang Linglong shouted loudly, as if afraid people wouldn't know she had money. I raised an eyebrow and looked at her with a half-smile. "Double, that is 10,000 taels. Is concubine Wang sure she can cough up that much money? You didn't steal the Shu household's grocery money, did you?" This single remark hit Wang Linglong right where it hurt. She did indeed have 10,000 taels in banknotes in her hand, which Shu Jian had strictly instructed her to take to a salt merchant named Qian Tong as a deposit. Shu Jian had trouble walking right now, so this kind of private matter could only be entrusted to his confidant. Her, but she was vain and had been drooling over this bracelet for a long time. Plus, lately Shujian had been short-tempered, either beating or scolding her, so she was nursing a grudge. She figured she'd buy the bracelet and wear it for a couple of days. And once Shujian's business succeeded and he made a killing, it wouldn't be too late to put the money back. Goaded by me like that, she got hot-headed, so how could she still care about some deposit or not? Who says I can't pay? Wang Linglong fished a thick stack of silver bills out of her bosom and slapped them onto the counter with a fei-pa-fei. Open your dog eyes wide and look clearly. This is 10,000 taels in silver bills. I am taking this bracelet. The surrounding onlookers let out a burst of gasps. 10,000 taels. That is no small sum. I looked at that stack of silver bills, a cold glint of success flashing through my eyes. The fish has taken the bait. Since concubine Wang is so generous, I'll step aside and let you have it. I nonchalantly withdrew my hand, looking at her like she was an idiot. But concubine Wang, better keep it safe. Although this bracelet is precious, there are some things more deadly than a bracelet. Wang Linglong didn't catch the deeper meaning in my words at all, simply assuming I was jealous. She triumphantly picked up the bracelet, slipped it onto her wrist, and shook it. Take care, Miss G. I won't see you off. In the future, you'd best stop thinking about the position of the mistress of the Shu Manor. I smiled, turned around, and left with Qixi. Walking out of Linlang Pavilion, Qixi couldn't help asking in a low voice, Miss, didn't we reserve that bracelet long ago? Why give it up to her? I looked back at the golden signboard that 10,000 taels of silver was Shujian's last hope to turn things around. Now that Wang Linglong has bought jewelry with it, once Shujian discovers the deposit is gone, the salt license deal has fallen through, and he has even offended that salt merchant by breaking his word. More importantly, that so-called Qiantong isn't actually a salt merchant at all, but a con artist I arranged long ago. That 10,000 taels was a trap from the start. Now, with this move by Wang Linglong, although the money didn't fall into my pocket, the effect is the same. Shujian's funding chain is broken, and it was broken by the hands of the woman he trusts the most. This taste of being backstabbed by the person who shares your bed must hurt 100 times more than a broken leg. Right, Shujian? Your retribution is only just beginning. When Wang Linglong returned to the Prince Shu Manor holding that phoenix blood jade bangle, Shujian was waiting for her good news with a heart full of joy. How did it go? Did Boss Qian accept the deposit? Shujian sat in his wheelchair, a fanatical light gleaming in his eyes. As long as we get that batch of salt licenses and resell them to the private salt smugglers in Zhongyan, we can not only fill the deficit in the manor, but also have a huge surplus to offer His Highness the Crown Prince. Then, who would still dare to look down on me, Shujian? Wang Linglong's eyes shifted evasively, and she subconsciously shrank her hand wearing the bangle back into her sleeve. He accepted it. Boss Qian said to meet in Yangzhou in half a month. Good. That is wonderful. Shujian slapped his thigh in excitement, completely failing to notice Wang Linglong's strange behavior. Half a month later, Shujian took Wang Linglong and dragged his battered body to Yangzhou. He thought what awaited him was enormous wealth, but he didn't know that it was a trap that had long since opened its gaping, bloody maw. Qiantong naturally didn't exist. When they arrived at the agreed location, Shujian didn't even see a shadow of a person, but was instead completely surrounded by soldiers, led by the Liangwei Salt Commissioner, who had been lying in ambush. Shujian, you colluded with salt smugglers to resell official salt, and the evidence is irrefutable. Seize him. Shujian was dumbfounded. Thursday, this is a misunderstanding. I am here to discuss legitimate business. I have a receipt for the deposit. He turned his head to look at Wang Linglong. Quick, take out the receipt. Wang Linglong was so scared her face went pale, and with a thump, she knelt on the ground. Heir, there is no receipt. What do you mean there isn't one? What about that 10,000 taels of silver? Shujian roared. Wang Linglong tremblingly revealed that blood-red bracelet from her sleeve. I bought this. In that instant, Shujian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at that bracelet in disbelief, then looked at Wang Linglong, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. You took that life, saving 10,000 taels, and bought a lousy bracelet. Spare my life, your highness. I was just momentarily blinded. You bitch! I am going to kill you. Shujian lunged at Wang Linglong like a madman, trying to strangle her, but was kicked to the ground by the soldiers and ended up with a mouthful of mud on his face. The deadliest part was that an account book and several secret letters were found in Shujian's luggage. That was the so-called Crown Prince's secret order that Qian Tong had intentionally revealed to him earlier to gain his trust. To show his loyalty, Shujian actually signed and fingerprinted it, and even embellished it by writing quite a few treasonous words, expressing dissatisfaction with the imperial court and a willingness to serve the crown prince like a dog or horse. These things now became ironclad proof of his collusion with the crown prince and intent to rebel. When the news reached the capital, the entire court was shocked. The emperor was furious. To protect himself, the crown prince didn't hesitate to push Shujian out, claiming he was a shameless scoundrel swindling people under the banner of the Eastern Palace, and actively petitioned for a strict investigation. Overnight, the once illustrious Prince Shu's manor was raided. Prince Shu vomited blood and died of anger, and Princess Consort Shu hanged herself. Shujian was escorted back to the capital, not only stripped of his title as heir, but also sentenced to exile of 3,000 Lai. That day, I stood in the attic of the Grand Tutor's manor. Watching Shujian wearing prison, the people threw rotten vegetable leaves and bad eggs at him, and the cursing was endless. "Tui, traitor! Serves you right to die without descendants!" Shujian huddled in the corner of the prison cart, covered in filth, his eyes empty and numb. It wasn't until he passed the entrance of the Grand Tutor's manor that he seemed to sense something. He suddenly looked up, locking eyes with my cold gaze. At that moment, the numbness in his eyes was instantly replaced by venom and madness. He opened his mouth, silently roaring something at me. I read his lips. He was saying, "Xiaoluying, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." I smiled, a smile that was incredibly brilliant. "Become a ghost? Don't worry, I won't let you die that easily." Shujian wasn't actually exiled. On the very night he was being escorted out of the city, the guards were accidentally attacked by bandits. The prisoner Shujian escaped during the chaos, his whereabouts unknown. Naturally, this wasn't an accident, but Shujian's final counterattack. Before his home was raided, he had secretly hidden some private savings and a dagger in a ruined temple outside the city. That was the last escape route he had left for himself. A rainy night 3 days later, I had just finished learning acupuncture from Imperial Physician Sunday and was returning to the manor. When the carriage reached a quiet alley, it suddenly jolted violently and stopped. "What is going on?" Chushi lifted the carriage curtain and asked. Before the words were finished, a cold arrow shot in with a fei hoosh fei, hitting Chushi squarely in the shoulder. Chushi let out a miserable scream and fell into a pool of blood. Immediately after, the carriage curtain was ripped down, revealing a face as hideous as an evil ghost. It was Shujian. He was soaked through, with a few withered branches tied to his broken leg to barely support his body. He clutched a gleaming dagger in his hand, his eyes filled with crazed, murderous intent. "Xiaoluying, come with me!" he roared, lunging forward to grab me by the hair, and dragged me off the carriage. The coachman driving the carriage had already been killed, lying breathless in the rain. I didn't resist, letting him drag me into that dilapidated donkey cart prepared beforehand, because I knew this was his final madness, and also the ultimate stage I had prepared for him. The donkey cart jolted along the muddy road for an hour, finally stopping in front of that long, abandoned, ruined temple on the outskirts of the city. Shujian threw me roughly before the dusty altar table, while he himself slumped onto the ground, gasping for breath. Run. Go on. Run. He brandished the dagger, laughing maniacally. Shiluing, you destroyed my family and turned me into a cripple. Today I am going to drag you down to hell with me. I calmly straightened my messy clothes, looked at his wretched, ghastly appearance, and said flatly, Shujian, you hate the wrong person. It wasn't me who really ruined you. It was your own greed and stupidity. Shut up, Shujian roared. If it weren't for you not saving me that day, my leg wouldn't have broken. If it weren't for your damn bracelet scheme, I wouldn't have lost everything. It is all your fault. You came back through rebirth, didn't you? You knew everything, yet you deliberately watched me die, so he guessed it too. So what if it is? I smiled contemptuously. Are you allowed to be reborn and harm me? But I am not allowed to be reborn and protect myself. When you killed me for that bitch in your past life, did you ever think that this day would come? Mentioning Wang Linglong, Shujian's hatred intensified. That bitch. That bitch deceived me so badly. I've already sent her a message saying that I have the Shu family's last treasure, which is in this dilapidated temple. If she dares to come, I'll make her pay with her life. My heart gave a jolt. So, this was his plan. To kill me and Wang Linglong together, and then kill himself. What a cruel heart, and what a stupid plan. Do you think she'll come? I sneered. She is probably hiding in some man's arms counting banknotes right now. She will come, Shujian smiled sinisterly. Because that bitch is the most greedy, and I've already lit some bewitching incense here. Once she comes in, she won't be able to leave alive. Bewitching incense? Me nose twitched slightly, and I indeed caught a whiff of a faint, cloyingly sweet scent. However, these cheap tricks, in front of me who received the true teachings of Imperial Physician Sunday, are simply showing off before a master. Way back when he dragged me off the carriage, I'd already secretly taken the antidote. Not only that, I also crushed a black pill in my sleeve while he wasn't looking. That is my specially made Shura powder. This drug is colorless and odorless, but inhaling just a little bit causes extremely terrifying hallucinations, making you see the person in front of you as the evil ghost you fear most. It also makes you extremely hyper, gives you immense strength, and leaves you feeling no pain. This is the real bewitching incense. Since the heir is so confident, let's wait and see. I leaned against the altar table and closed my eyes, hiding the cold glint within them. An hour later, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the ruined temple. The door was violently shoved open, and Wang Linglong, wearing a straw rain cape, rushed in with a face full of greed. Where is the treasure? Where is the treasure? Shu Jian suddenly jerked his head up, those crimson eyes flickering with a bloodthirsty light in the dim candlelight. Treasure, it is right here. He raised the dagger, a beast-like low growl rumbling in his throat. Meanwhile, the effects of the invisible Ashura powder in the air began to kick in. The show has begun. Inside the ruined temple, the candlelight flickered, stretching the shadow of the modeled statue on the wall into a twisted, hideous shape, as if coldly watching the impending slaughter. As soon as Wang Linglong entered, she didn't see the so-called treasures of gold and silver, but instead bumped right into a blood-soaked Shu Jian, who looked like a vengeful ghost, terrified. She let out a scream and tried to run out. Ghost! Why run, my dear Linglong? Haven't you always wanted my money? Didn't you want to give me a son? Come on, I'll give it all to you. Shu Jian had completely lost his mind to the Asura powder by now. In his eyes, the panic-stricken woman before him was no longer the mistress he both loved and hated, but Shiluing from his past life, the one he had ordered poisoned to death, now covered in black blood and demanding his life, or perhaps those guards who had mocked and humiliated him on the path to exile. All the resentment, humiliation, and madness converged in this moment into a monstrous killing intent. Like a wounded beast, dragging his broken leg, he pounced with incredible speed, plunging the dagger in his hand, ruthlessly into Wang Linglong's thigh. Aha! Wang Linglong let out a shrill scream. The intense pain didn't make her go limp, but instead, under the effect of the Ashura powder, triggered the hidden beast within her. Her eyes instantly went bloodshot, her face twisted, and her originally delicate body exploded with shocking strength. She violently kicked Xu Jian in the chest, sending him flying until he crashed heavily against the offering table. Kill. Kill. I am gonna kill you, you piece of trash. It is all your fault I could only buy that lousy bracelet. It is all your fault I got dumped by His Highness the Crown Prince. Wang Linglong roared, grabbed a broken tile from the ground, ignoring the wound on her leg, and lunged at Xu Jian like a madwoman. The two of them wrestled together on the ground, filled with dust and straw. No moves, no technique, just the most primitive, most savage biting and fighting. Xu Jian's dagger had dropped at some point, so he used his teeth to bite Wang Linglong's neck, ripping a chunk of flesh right off. Wang Linglong, meanwhile, used that tile to madly smash Xu Jian's head, each blow accompanied by a dull thud and splattering blood. Die. Die. All of you just die. Xu Jian's roars no longer sounded human, and the hallucinations before his eyes were getting worse, as if he saw countless evil spirits coming to claim his life. Zia Liuying, I'm not afraid of you. I am the chosen one. I want to start over. I'm going to kill all of you. And Wang Linglong was also driven mad by the hallucinations. She had a death grip on Xu Jian's neck, her strength shockingly immense, her fingernails digging deep into his flesh. Give me the money. Give me back my wealth and glory. I stood quietly in the corner, watching this hell on earth. Blood stained the ground red, and the air was filled with the strong smell of gore and that nauseating aura of madness. This is their retribution. In my past life, one was a hypocrite, and the other a true villain, joining forces to push me into the abyss. In this life, I merely handed them a knife, and they couldn't wait to tear each other to pieces. I don't know how long passed, but the sounds of fighting gradually died down. Wang Linglong was the first to fall. Her neck had been bitten to shreds, blood gushing out, and those eyes full of greed stared dead at the roof beam, never closing even after she breathed her last. As for Xu Jian, his face was covered in blood, and a piece of his skull had been smashed in. He lay slumped over Wang Linglong's corpse, his throat emitting strange gurgling sounds, his body still twitching unconsciously. He wasn't completely dead yet. I slowly walked over, looking down at him from above. Xu Jian seemed to sense my approach, straining to turn his eyes. In those cloudy orbs, a sliver of clarity finally returned. Liu Liuying. He reached out a bloody, mangled hand, trying to grab the hem of my skirt. His voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Save. Save me. I am the heir. I am rebirth. I can't die. Even at this moment, he was still dreaming that absurd dream. I crouched down and looked at his unrecognizable face. There was not a shred of pity in me, only endless coldness. Xu Jian, take a good look. I pointed at Wang Linglong nearby, who had died with eyes wide open. This is your beloved wife. Same bed in life, same grave in death. That is true perfection. Number, I don't. Xu Jian shook his head desperately, tears of blood streaming from his eyes. I was wrong, Liuying. Give me one more chance. If there is a next life, there is no next life. I cut him off coldly, pulling a silver needle from my sleeve and stabbing it into the lethal point on the top of his head without hesitation. This needle is named Soul Severer. It not only severed his life force but was designed to make him die in excruciating pain, his soul wailing in endless darkness, never to be reincarnated for all eternity. Erg. Xu Jian's body suddenly went rigid, his eyes bulging as if he had seen something utterly terrifying. A moment later, He slumped heavily and completely stopped breathing. But those eyes of his were still staring dead at me, filled with unwillingness and malice. I stood up and dusted off my hands, as if brushing away something dirty. It is over. The grudges of 2 lifetimes finally came to an end at this moment. The rain stopped. A hint of pale white appeared on the horizon, and the faint morning light spilled in through the window lattice of the ruined temple, illuminating the mess on the ground. I walked out of the ruined temple, and Chu-Shi, who had been waiting outside, came up to meet me. "Miss, is everything taken care of?" I nodded, glancing back at that gloomy, ruined temple. "Burn it." A raging fire swallowed up the ruined temple, devouring all the sin and filth within. Xu Jian and Wang Linglong's bodies turned to ashes in the blaze. But I didn't stop there. I knew that some people, even in death, don't deserve to rest in peace. 3 days later, Ziyun Temple. This is a Taoist temple located on the outskirts of the capital, famous for 1,000-year-old ancient peach tree on the mountain behind it. Legend has it that this peach tree can suppress all evil spirits in the world. I took 2 trusted aides with me and holding a black earthen jar arrived beneath that ancient peach tree. Inside, that jar was the soil collected from the ashes of the ruined temple, mixed with the bone ash of Xu Jian and Wang Linglong. "Miss, do we really have to do this?" The trusted aide hesitated. "This is just too cruel." I smiled faintly, yet my eyes were cold as ice. Compared to what they did to me, what is this little tactic? I had someone dig a deep pit at the base of the peach tree and buried that black clay jar inside. Afterward, I took out a few sheets of yellow paper covered in drawn charms, pasted them over the burial spot, and pressed a soul-suppressing stone, carved with scriptures on top. This wasn't some scripture for blessing, but the most vicious soul-locking curse. In the legacy of the Miao Frontier poison doctors, this sort of curse can trap the soul of the deceased in place, suffering the pain of scorching fire day and night, never to be reincarnated for all eternity. Doesn't Xu Jian believe in rebirth? Doesn't he think he is the chosen one? Then I'll make it so that even if he has 1,000 chances at rebirth, he can only be trapped in this tiny space, helplessly watching the seasons cycle and the world's bustle, yet forever unable to touch it, unable to be free. Xu Jian, this is the final gift I am giving you. I stood beneath the tree, gently stroking the rough trunk, and whispered, "You just stay here and watch properly. Watch how I live a magnificent life. How I possess the happiness you could never hope to reach in this lifetime." Having done all this, I turned and left, without looking back a single time. The mountain breeze blew past, making the peach tree's branches and leaves rustle, as if someone were wailing in pain. But I didn't care. After returning to the Grand Tutor's manor, I changed out of those plain clothes and put on a bright crimson silk skirt. Seeing me return, father and mother came up to meet me with worry. "Luiying, is everything settled?" I smiled and linked my arm with mother's, my eyes curving into crescents, the previous gloom completely gone. "It is all settled, mother. From now on, your daughter will only look forward." 6 months later, relying on my miraculous medical skills, I cured the headaches that had plagued the Empress Dowager for years, and was exceptionally granted the title County Mistress Angguo. I didn't remain unmarried for the rest of my life either. 3 years later, I married the new top scholar. He was a gentleman as gentle as jade, and treated me extremely well. Although we had no children of our own, we adopted a bright and clever child from the clan, and our family of 3 lived in perfect harmony. Every year on the Qingming festival, I go to Purple Cloud Temple to offer incense, but I never go under that peach tree in the back mountain. I just stand in front of the main hall, take a look in that direction from afar, and then, with a smile on my lips, turn around and leave. I heard that ever since that year, that peach tree has never bloomed again. Some say it is because some greatly evil thing was suppressed under the tree, sucking dry the tree's spiritual energy, but I know It is because those two filthy souls are endlessly tearing at each other in hell, causing even the vegetation to wither. That is enough. This is the most perfect ending that I, Xia Liuying, have written for the love and hatred spanning these two lifetimes.